Welcome, colleagues, researchers, and students. This lecture is presented by Brian Janus, Research Systems Architect and Research Scientist. It provides a structured, systems-level analysis of inflammation, integrating molecular biology, immune signaling networks, and translational clinical science. Inflammation is a coordinated biological response involving the immune system, vascular system, nervous system, and metabolic regulation. It functions as a protective mechanism in acute settings but becomes a major contributor to disease pathogenesis and progression when chronically activated. At the systems level, inflammation is initiated by immune cell activation. Macrophages and neutrophils respond to injury or infection, releasing cytokines that coordinate immune communication and drive the inflammatory response. The vascular system contributes through endothelial activation, increasing permeability and enabling immune cell migration into affected tissues. The nervous system interacts through neuroinflammatory signaling, while the metabolic system modulates inflammatory tone through insulin sensitivity and energy regulation. Together, these systems form an integrated inflammatory network. At the molecular level, inflammation is governed by interconnected signaling pathways. The nuclear factor kappa B pathway acts as a central transcriptional regulator of inflammatory gene expression. The Mitogen-Activated Protein Kinase pathway coordinates cellular stress responses. The Janus Kinase and signal transducer and activator of transcription pathway mediate cytokine-driven signaling. These pathways lead to the production of key inflammatory mediators, including tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin-1 beta, interleukin-6, and reactive oxygen species, which amplify signaling and propagate the inflammatory response across tissues. From a pathophysiological perspective, acute inflammation is protective, but chronic inflammation results in persistent immune activation, oxidative stress, tissue damage, and dysregulated repair mechanisms. Chronic inflammation is strongly associated with, and often implicated in, the progression of major disease states, including cardiovascular disease, cancer, neurodegeneration, and metabolic dysfunction. From a translational perspective, inflammation presents both therapeutic opportunity and complexity. Interventions include anti-inflammatory compounds, immunomodulatory strategies, and systemic lifestyle approaches. However, several constraints limit clinical translation, including variability in bioavailability, dose-response inconsistency, patient heterogeneity, and the risk of impairing essential immune function when inflammation is excessively suppressed. Key points and highlights from this analysis include the central role of cytokine signaling networks, the integration of multiple physiological systems, the importance of distinguishing acute versus chronic inflammatory states, and the recognition that inflammation operates as a systems-level contributor to disease processes rather than a single isolated pathway. From an evidence standpoint, Tier 1 human, clinical, and translational evidence strongly supports an association between chronic inflammation and disease across multiple systems. Tier 2 mechanistic and preclinical evidence provides extensive validation of inflammatory pathways, particularly nuclear factor kappa B signaling, cytokine networks, and oxidative stress mechanisms. From a scientific validation perspective, inflammation represents one of the most well-characterized biological frameworks in modern biomedical research. However, important translational gaps remain, including variability in clinical outcomes, complexity of multisystem signaling, and limitations in targeting specific pathways without unintended systemic effects. In conclusion, inflammation represents a foundational biological process at the intersection of molecular signaling, systems physiology, and disease pathogenesis. Understanding its mechanisms across biological scales is essential for advancing preventative and therapeutic strategies within modern medicine. This lecture is part of a broader, structured, systems-level research framework developed by Brian Janus. A full-length scientific monograph, including expanded pathway mapping, multi-omics integration, and detailed literature references, is available for deeper review. Subscribe for continued systems-level scientific analysis and research-based content.